This is Rock and Roll English. Real people, real English. Here's your host, Martin Johnston.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll English, episode number 246, baby. Oh yeah. In today's episode, I speak to Michael from English with Michael. That's right, we are going to continue this 1 week with a rock and roll guest, the usual people, Boom Boom Cannon, Dan the Man, the Hellraiser, Corporal Coma, etc. And then 1 week with another English teacher, podcaster, YouTube or whoever. And today, as I said, we speak to Michael from English with Michael about time management. Yes, how to manage your time, because this is something I certainly suffer with. I don't always manage my time so well, and I'm sure it can be useful for some of you. And Michael, even just talking to him, looking at him, you can see he is a bloody organised guy. So he shares some tips with us today. And I must say, what I really enjoy about this episode is many of the things we talk about, for example, maybe I already knew, but when you talk about these things with someone, you kind of think, fuck, yeah, why don't I actually do that? So it has given me the motivation to do these things and actually manage my time better. So I hope you can learn something from it, even one small tip. If you do, it will have been a huge success. So here is the episode with Michael. I will talk to you at the end. Happy listening. So hello, Michael, and welcome to Rock and Roll English.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming. You're one of the people I've been keeping an eye on. I've got some people on Instagram I keep an eye on. I think, interesting. This person is interesting. And then I finally then plucked up the courage and reached out. And so I'm very happy that you accepted to come on the podcast.
Pleasure.
So I'm sure everyone probably knows about you already. But for those that don't, tell us a bit about you. Where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah, sure. I'm from Cornwall in England. I now live in London. I've been teaching English online for the past few years. Primarily
so before Corona, yeah? You weren't one of the people that were forced to do it.
I like to say that I was working from home before it was cool, you know?
Okay, yeah, I like it.
So it's kind of funny. I see all these people complaining about getting used to setting up a home office, and I'm like, been doing it for years, mate.
Exactly.
Yeah, primarily one-to-one lessons. More recently, I've been doing group lessons, and past couple of years, I've been doing my own podcast as well, much like you, the Level Up English.
Yeah, I've seen, and yeah, had a listen as well. Absolutely brilliant, and also had a look at your website. And when I looked at your website, I just thought, wow, everything looks so nice and simple and clean and beautiful. And I thought, because I think a website is a good reflection of someone, and I thought this person seems like he is organised. And so on the contrary, my website is an absolute mess, for example, which I think again is maybe a reflection of me. So I thought, right, okay, he looks like an organised guy, and then saw you had done a podcast about time management. So I thought, right, this is what we're talking about, okay?
Yeah, I love this idea. I think I am quite organised. I do. Maybe to a kind of an OCD level. But yeah, okay, I like this topic, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Because as well, I saw, that you speak Japanese, Chinese, and you're learning Cornish as well, which is like a dialect from where you're from.
Well, yeah, it's not actually a dialect. It's a whole separate language related to Welsh and other Celtic languages. So it's quite hard to learn because there's not really any resources. Well, there's not many resources for it. But yeah, I'm trying to dabble in different languages. It's kind of my hobby, but I'm, not that good yet.
Right. So on to today's topic then. So about time management. Okay. As you said, you're very organised. So hopefully you can give the listeners and me a lot of tips. So to be more organised. So the first one I saw on your list is do important stuff first. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what you do, because when we spoke, you told me that you start lessons at 8 o'clock. So what time, for example, do you start your day?
Oh yeah, that's a good link to make, I guess. Yeah, I mean, the list is in no particular order, just what came to my mind first. But yeah, I mean, I wake up at 6 and pretty much I get, I'm not the kind of person to snooze. I get up straight away and I start doing my language study because it's that time every morning where I can set aside for language study. No one else is awake. I'm not going to be disturbed. My notifications are off. So I tend to study for about pretty much until 8, but then I do have a break for breakfast as well.
Yeah.
So maybe an hour and a half or something like that.
Right. Okay. Wow. So every morning wake up to study languages. Wow, that's dedication.
Yeah. I mean, it's less dedication, I would say, more just a habit. I always compare language learning to like brushing your teeth. So just like I brush my teeth in the morning, I don't think about it. Language learning is the same for me now because I've done it so many days in a row that
of course
I never feel like, I have to do this. I never have to push myself to do it. It's just like a default habit at this point.
Sure. So what do you do then at that time? Like read, like study vocabulary, or a bit of everything?
Yeah, I mean, my routine kind of gradually changes. It evolves over time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, sometimes it's not always great. Like if I'm feeling really tired in the morning, I'll just do the bare minimum. I try not to be too harsh on myself. But generally, I'll start with my Anki flashcards. So on these flashcards, I've got like sentences where I will just translate it to and from the language. These are ones I've made myself before. Then I will have some time. What comes next? Yeah, then usually it's like some reading or some transcribing. So maybe it's listening to a video and kind of writing down what I hear, just reading a blog post.
Yeah, transcribing is a very important thing, for language learning.
It's so helpful. I've been doing it a lot recently. It's really good. Then if I have time, I will... What do I do next? I usually don't have time, to be honest, so maybe that's just it.
But so going back to important stuff then, so if you put language learning aside, because you also do many other things, so what kind of other activities do you like to get out of the way early on?
So the reason I say, well, I don't want to say I've heard people say this and I've stolen it. It's not my, advice, but the reason I try to do important stuff first is because I think sometimes you can just go about your day and you can do all these kind of tasks that maybe need to get done, but they're not so important, like washing the dishes, cleaning the floor, and, replying to emails.
Sure.
You have to do it eventually, but it's very easy to do that until 5 o'clock. And then you haven't done anything that's kind of helping you progress to that next level in whatever you want to do. So for me, my main focus these days is kind of, my lessons are the main focus because that's the main part of my job. So I'll start with lesson planning for the next day. Because, that's what I enjoy, and it's also the thing that makes me money. So I have to focus on that, and then I kind of go down a list in levels of importance. Like then it will be working on my membership site. I've got like a site connected to my podcast, so I want to kind of make content for that. And then you just go down a list. Like end of the day, it's like very simple stuff.
But you have a list before the day of like tasks that. So when you wake up in the morning, you have specific tasks that you need to do.
Yeah, I'm worried I'm going to sound like too crazy now, but every night I'll be in bed on my phone and I'll make a list of what I want to do the next day. So I wake up in the morning. There's no decision to be made. It's already made.
I like it.
By past Michael. I don't know if you do anything similar.
No, I actually wake up early myself, very early in fact. So recently I've even been waking up at like 4:30.
Whoa, that's insane.
I know. But one thing that I often do is wake up and then I think, I'm up, and then I sit down and I think, now what the fuck am I going to do? Why did I wake up so early? And it does take me a few minutes. So I really should try to get in the habit. It's such a simple thing to do of making that list the night before. So I think I need to get into that habit. So another one on your list is work smarter, not harder. Now explain this a bit. What do you mean by this?
I I think someone else said this again. It wasn't me. Maybe it was like
Yeah.
Bill Gates or someone like that.
Right,
They kind of
okay.
said this before. Essentially, it's all about how efficient can you be in your work. So I'm always thinking about this because I've got so many projects on the go, and a lot of the stuff I'm doing is not really necessary. Like I used to
agree.
spend ages editing my Instagram videos and putting subtitles on the video. And
I've done that. I mean, I rarely do that, but when I do, yeah, I'm sure, like probably you were about to say there, you spend like 2 hours doing it, and then the video gets like 5 likes anyway, and you think, why did I
Exactly.
spend all of that time putting subtitles on that video?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a couple people that really like them and maybe they need them, but it's just not worth the time you're putting in. So I think sometimes you've got to take a step back and think, can I give basically the same value without, and do less work, spend less time on it. So I'm always kind of questioning that. And I think there's always ways that you can make things more efficient and, cut things out that are maybe not necessary.
Absolutely. And one of my other terrible habits is looking at websites, which I don't need to because I'm a big football fan. So just naturally, and this has been the case for, I don't know, the last 15 years. If I'm at a computer, I will naturally, if I've got like a second free, my hands will just click FO and then like, because the website, like your recently visited websites like come up and then it will go Football 365 and I'll click that. Even if, for example, if I'm uploading a file and the file's taking a couple of minutes, I think, okay, I'll have a quick look at Football 365 for like 30 seconds. And then I might lose 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And I think, oh, God, where has this time gone? That's what annoys me, that I'm often not very productive.
Yeah, that's the hardest one. For me, it's the Y button, which is straight to YouTube. Just Y, enter YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, in fact, I actually, to try and concentrate, have like some kind of study music. It's like lo-fi hip hop.
Yeah, I like
so
that.
That's the first thing I do. YouTube, get that on. And that does help. And another thing, whilst we're talking about this, I don't feel so embarrassed to tell you about this because you said you like to geek out on this stuff. I have a website called, well, not my website, a website I use called Focus Mate. And you basically set a time to meet a random person online. And then you say, it's a 50-minute session. And you say, okay, what do you hope to do in these 50 minutes? And you say, for example, I say, I'm going to edit a podcast, you, and they say, I'm going to, I don't know, write an essay. And then at the end, you ask each other, how did you do? And I find that good to get myself to sit down and actually do something. That's how I get up at 4:30 because I've got someone waiting for me. And if you don't go, you get like an email and you feel like a terrible person because you've let someone down. So that's what helps me get up.
I heard of that before. That's such an amazing idea. I've never used it though. But yeah, it's just having that accountability partner. That's what they call it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So useful.
It is a bit weird, I must admit. That like initial time, the first time you do it, you're kind of like, oh, this is very strange. And yeah, I think the conversation, the important thing is to keep that to a minimum. When I say, for example, I'm editing a podcast and someone then asks me questions about the podcast, I think, oh God, here we go. I didn't want to get into a conversation here.
It kind of defeats the purpose of being productive, doesn't it?
We're not here for a chat. Let's get to work. Okay, so something else you have here is set deadlines. Okay, I'm a big fan of this. I often don't do it though. So how do you do this to make it work?
Yeah, this is maybe my favorite on the list because I kind of do it. I mean, some people might be surprised. So I think first of all, so the quote I put in the excuse me, the quote I put in the page is, I think it's called Parkinson's law, right? Which is work expands to fill the time allotted. So if you give yourself a week to finish a project, it will take a week. You'll find a way to make it take a week. And then if you say do it in one day, usually you might be able to do that, depending on how crazy it is.
Absolutely. I think the best example of this for me, obviously I'm sure you'll be familiar with this yourself as a teacher, is lesson planning. Because at times when I was maybe relaxed, I thought, okay, I've got a couple of hours, it would take me a couple of hours to do. But other times when I was like really busy, like last minute thing, okay, I've got like 10 minutes, it would take 10 minutes. Like, as you said, work expands to fill the time allotted.
Yeah, totally. And I also do the opposite. So I often set, I don't think this was on my list, was it? I often set a deadline for when I have to stop working. So sometimes I have like ongoing projects that might take like many, many months. But rather than just say, do as much as I can today, I'll say, okay, only work for 1 hour on this. Because I find that's much more productive than saying, do as much as I can. Because I know I've got that time limit, so I know I'm going to work faster and harder. And again, it kind of links back to that number 2, where it's more efficient, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That is something I think very useful. A time I often do this that I've actually been doing recently is reading in another language, actually. Mm-hmm. So when I read in Italian, and if I set a timer on my phone, like a physical time, instead of just saying like I'm going to read for 15 minutes, I put a timer and think 15 minutes. And in those 15 minutes, I'm so concentrated because I know it's like a competition against the clock kind of thing. So I'm thinking I really want to read and focus. Whilst if sometimes I just open a book and say I'm going to read, well, I might get bored after 5 minutes or just like start thinking about something else. The classic thing, you read the page and you think I haven't actually concentrated. So yeah, deadlines, I think, for everything, and especially what you mentioned about ongoing projects, because that's a similar to me, that because you can't finish everything in a day, it never stops. So even sometimes maybe I've had dinner, it's 9 o'clock at night, and I think, you know what, I might just get my computer and do like another 30 minutes
Very
or
dangerous.
something. Yeah, exactly. Terrible. Whilst I think, if you have those strict deadlines, then I think, it makes you feel more productive and also satisfied. I think every time you hit a small goal of, working for an hour and then you stop, you think, okay, right, I feel good.
That's a great point. Yeah, because if you just say do as much as I can, there's no time when you can feel like, okay, I finished my goal. I've been successful, because you didn't set a goal. But if you say work for 1 hour, you can like put a big tick on your to-do list, and you get that, I guess, dopamine, the good feeling of, yes, I did it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because I've a membership area as well, the Rock and Roll English Family. We're doing like a book club at the moment, and we've set the goal of like 10 pages a day. And so because I'm reading the same book in Italian, everyone's reading it in English. When I finish those 10 pages, it's such a great feeling. I think, wow, I'm so productive and I'm so proud of myself. So yes, definitely a good point. So the next one here is batching. So like putting things together. So tell us more about this. What do you mean by this?
Yeah, so a lot of tasks you do, maybe like repeated tasks, a lot of the time that you're kind of spending on the task is preparing for the task and setting it up and all that kind of stuff. And it's often much quicker if you can do it all in one go. So that's what it means to batch, to do lots of things in one go. I think that the one I mentioned in the post was about replying to emails and messages I get. So I used to spend, all day on social media replying to messages, but now I have a time. Well, I'm not perfect at this. Sometimes, I break the rule, but generally in the evening, I'll say like, okay, 10 minutes, reply to all my messages, and that's it for the day. And that will take 10 minutes maximum. Whereas if I'm replying to messages throughout the day, it probably will add up to more than half an hour or something a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
I guess because you're getting a lot more replies as you're doing it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I actually sometimes try to do this, especially with social media. Like you said, I'm not perfect and often do waste a lot of time on social media, but to try and do that, because otherwise you can just spend all day. But whilst if you think, right, okay, I'm going to reply to messages at a specific time, then that really does help, because people can wait. If someone sent you a message saying like, how are you today? It's not actually necessary to respond immediately. They don't mind, I think, if they have to wait a couple of hours. So yeah, trying to do it all at once is definitely a good thing. So the next one, which was a very interesting point. So you put record your days, and then also a link to a video where you recorded your whole year. So like everything you had done. And so I watched some of the video, and you said, for example, I spent like 1,000 hours doing English lessons. So how did you manage to do that for one whole year? So you had an app on your phone, I believe, yeah?
Yeah. I've got an app called Life Cycle.
Okay.
Which is quite smart. Like a lot of it is automatic. Like especially once you've inputted something, like, it will record how long you stay in a certain place.
Okay.
And then it will kind of say, what did you do here? And you'll say, oh, I had coffee in this shop. Mm-hmm. And then if you go back there again, it will just assume you're having coffee.
Right.
So the longer you use the app, the smarter it gets.
Right.
There's some things like if you're at home all day, it doesn't know what you're doing at home because your location isn't changing. So I have to input language study, exercise, that kind of stuff myself. But again, it's just 5 minutes at the end of every day that I do that.
Because that's I've tried various apps, but I'm too lazy to actually like tell it what I'm doing. So the discipline to do that for one whole year, to say like studying languages, I don't know, working on my blog, lessons. So you constantly put that in, so then you can analyze your day and see what you've done. Is that right?
Yeah. Again, it's just a habit, I think. It's just I kind of don't think about it anymore. But it's kind of cool to see. I think that's the best time. At the end of the year, it will give you a notification and say, this is how your year compares to last year, and you've done more walking but less language learning, and it's really cool to see that. And then you can track what you're doing more of, what you're doing less of. Sometimes I use it for completely time management, productive kind of stuff. Like it will say every week, it will give me a notification and say you were at home 10 hours more compared to last week. So then I kind of realize, maybe I should spend more time outside or something like that.
Oh God, I'd hate to see mine at the moment, how much I stay at home. And the only similar thing to this I get is, I think on all iPhones, I'm not sure, but on a Monday, you get a notification to say how long you've used your phone. And that's sometimes I see that and I just think, oh my God. Sometimes it's like 4.5 hours a day. And I just think, how is that possible? I just can't believe it. Like, but then again, I do watch quite a few videos, I suppose, on YouTube, on my phone these days. But still, 4.5 hours a day. When I see something like that, then I think, I really need to do something now. And then it will go down, and then it goes up again, and then goes down.
It's kind of fun trying to keep it as low as possible. But do you have an Apple computer as well?
No, not an Apple computer.
That's
because they tell you how long you've.
It's the same, yeah. And
right.
I'm almost afraid to admit it. My phone is not too bad, like 2 hours a day maybe.
Okay.
But that's because it's all on my laptop, and it's often like 10 is the minimum. 10 hours a day is minimum.
Wow, yeah.
But I'm working on my laptop. I'm everything on my laptop. So sometimes it's 12 or even 13 hours a day. It's insane. Like through the lockdown, through the pandemic.
Sure. I'm sure mine would actually be the same, actually. But you mentioned walking as well, because you're into walking a lot, I saw.
Yeah, I am into walking, yes.
Yeah. What's your longest walk?
That's a good question. So I think it was probably last year or 2 years ago. In Cornwall and Devon, we have a path called the Southwest Coast Path, which so it's like a peninsula, this part of the UK. It kind of sticks out into the sea.
Yeah.
And there's a path that goes for hundreds of miles that you can go around the entire coast. It's really beautiful. It would take weeks probably to walk the whole thing. But I did one section of it, and I think I ended up walking... No, I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing now. No. Okay, I remember in steps. It was like 40,000 steps.
Okay.
And it was up and down along the coast.
Okay.
I don't remember ever doing more than that. I don't know how that would equate to kilometers or miles, though.
So I've just looked on Google, 32 kilometers. That's quite a walk.
Yeah.
Quite a walk.
That sounds about right. Yeah, it was, I got home and slept for like 24 hours. It was horrible.
Nice. Well, speaking of sleeping, taking a break, the next on the list is more breaks equals more productivity. And again, this is something that I think I struggle with. So how do you do this, and how do you maintain it? Because I often say to myself, for example, when I do that focus mate, for example, I have 50 minutes and then maybe I'm doing one 10 minutes later and I think I'll have a 10-minute break. Mm-hmm. But then I often haven't finished what I'm doing. So I continue for the next 10 minutes and then the next session starts. So then I don't actually take any break and I just sit in front of my computer for hours and hours and hours. So how do you maintain it?
Yeah, I think that's a common one, isn't it? And again, this is something where I don't necessarily practice what I preach. I should, but sometimes I kind of forget to do this. But I know whenever I do this, it helps so much. So I spoke in the blog post about sleep. That's a good one, because a lot of people will limit their sleep so they can have more hours in the day and get more work done or more language study done or whatever they do. But in my experience, I find it just never works, because if I'm tired, if I haven't got a good night's sleep, everything I do is going to be really, really poor quality. Absolutely. So that's an obvious one. And like yesterday, I did a lot of work yesterday in one go without taking any breaks, and I kind of forgot. And then I went for a walk. It was only 5 or 10 minutes to just walk around my neighborhood. And when I got back, I just felt so refreshed and calm. And I kind of felt like I could focus on what I was doing a lot more easily. So just 5-minute break, get some fresh air, I think can really improve productivity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the same for me. I actually live very, very close to the sea. And but considering how close I live, I probably don't go there as much as I should. And then some other days I think, right, I don't care what's happening today. At this time, I'm taking a break and going to the sea. And like you said, even just a 5-10 minute walk and I come back and I feel a million times better. But I think I just need to plan my day better. And I think I need to plan my breaks in, because, we plan lessons or something like this, or, you go to work, you think, okay, tomorrow I've got 9 o'clock, I have to be at work or whatever. But I think even if you meet a friend, I'm going to the cinema at 8 o'clock. But I think if you put in a break and say, right, okay, at 1 o'clock, for example, on my lunch break, I'm doing this, and it's in your calendar, let's say, then I think you're much more likely to do it.
That's a great tip. I might do that from now on. I haven't really done that before, but I might start doing that, because it's definitely my weak area.
Yeah. So I think we're helping each other here.
Yeah.
So the last one is don't burn out, which again is something that I have definitely suffered with. And I think once you're running your own thing, I think it's even more difficult then, because if you have a normal job, you get 2 weeks holiday or whatever, you go on holiday, you forget about your job, whilst that's a lot more difficult. So how do you do it? Because I basically I work 365 days a year, basically. Yeah.
I mean, this is one that I've had to learn the hard way. I mean, maybe like yourself too, I don't know. But I mean, when I first started, I think like many people who do online teaching and other stuff, I worked, 7 days, every day, pretty much 8 in the morning until 9 in the evening. I had no off time apart from sleep. And I mean, sometimes even today I'll do similar things where I'm not teaching, but I'm doing other stuff and I don't really have any time to relax. And I end up getting stressed. My jaw starts to hurt. That's where I guess my stress comes up. And then I get sick, because I always get sick when I get stressed. And then I have to take a break for a week.
Of course.
So it ends up being anti-productive, because I have to recover. But if I've learned from that I should just take some time out. So one thing I'll do is set really strict boundaries for when I am not working. Right. I've even had people in the past saying, I want you to help me proofread my essay. It's due on Saturday. I'll pay you, £500, a ridiculous amount of money. And I'm always like, no, because this is my off day. I'm really strict with that. So Saturday, no work at all.
Okay.
And after about 6 p.m. every day, no work at all. So that's
Right.
basically my rule.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think I need to make one of those rules because, like I said, I often find myself at night, and I often think even Sundays, the day of rest, apparently. But then, I mean, I often do lessons on Sundays sometimes, and certainly like editing podcasts and stuff. I mean, I've edited a podcast like Christmas Day, like birthdays, everything. I even remember when my child was born and we had to go to the hospital, and then I was thinking, fuck, I haven't finished the podcast. No. What am I going to do? But that time I actually just left it. I thought I'm sure people will understand if the podcast is a couple of days late because I had to go to hospital with my wife who was having a baby.
Who's going to be more mad? Like if you don't, your wife or the listeners? I'm sure. Yeah, you can.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think setting really strict boundaries, I think, is the key there. Okay, Michael. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you about this. Certainly. So a lot of the things, obviously, we've covered. Maybe I'd heard about before, but I always think it's good to refresh these things. Like you maybe read a book and you think, no, actually, yeah, shit, I should do that. So yeah, definitely helpful for me. I hope for everyone else as well. But before you go, tell us where people can find out more about you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have 2 main websites. One is my teaching website where people can have private or group lessons with me, which is ewmichael.com, which stands for English with Michael. I'm on all the social medias of the same name, English with Michael. And then my podcast is called the Level Up English Podcast. And I also have a website connected to that, which is just levelupenglish.school. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll put links to all of this in the show notes anyway. So thanks a lot for your time, Michael, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Bye-bye. Okay, so that was me and Michael speaking about time management. As I said, I hope you took away one thing from this. What I really took away is to take more breaks. Okay, this is something I suffer with because I always think, well, I'll just do this. But now, after talking to Michael, I've realized that it is actually very important and can make me feel much better and also be much more productive. So that was my takeaway point. Share yours with me. Remember, I always share these episodes on social media. No one ever really comments, but the reason I share them is so you can leave me your comments and we can interact. So please do. I will speak to you all again very soon, people. But in the meantime, just keep on rocking, baby.
Thanks so much for listening to Rock and Roll English. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit rockandrollenglish.com and facebook.com/rockandrollenglish. We'll catch you next time.